Welcome to the second season of Highway 28. I'm your host, Bruce Cooper. Last year, during the first season of Highway 28, I broadcast 4 videos on diet and health. I believe these videos are important for people to see. Based on what I've learned, I've come to believe the standard American diet is misguided. In my opinion, the majority of Americans would benefit from eliminating sugar and excess carbohydrates from their diets and adapting their way of eating to a very low-carb, moderate protein, high-fat diet. The first show I presented last year, The Food Revolution, features Swedish doctor Andreas Eenfeldt. His website, www.dietdoctor.com, is one of the best I have found that explains the low-carb, high-fat way of eating. Dr. Eenfeldt provides simple and understandable information about what foods to eat and what foods to avoid. Humans have evolved over the course of millions of years. Unfortunately, since the 1980s, our species has become increasingly sick and obese. If Michelangelo had created the statue David today, here's how Dr. Eenfeldt suggests David might look based upon the standard American diet. In his video, Dr. Eenfeldt presents compelling graphics which show the obesity epidemic that began in the mid-1980s continues through our current times. This timing coincides with the introduction of low-fat dietary guidelines by the USDA. These guidelines resulted in high levels of carbohydrates and sugars replacing healthy fats in our diets. This change and other changes in our food supply, such as the introduction of inflammatory vegetable oils, has resulted in Americans becoming increasingly obese. In addition, related diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and other metabolic disorders have increased as well. My second broadcast last year featured Tom Naughton discussing diet, health, and the wisdom of crowds, including the origins of our questionable mainstream nutritional guidelines. Tom compares the wisdom of crowds to the vision of the anointed, concluding it's time for Americans to continue to leverage the power of the internet and the wisdom of crowds for possible better solutions to health issues than the sometimes misguided and ineffective advice of so-called experts. Last year's third episode of Highway 28 featured Dr. Jeff Volek's presentation about the many facets of keto adaptation for health, performance, and beyond. He describes how ketogenic diets work and why low-carb, high-fat diets remain a fringe concept even though carb restriction diets are rising in popularity. Dr. Volek explains that carbohydrates are more than just fuel, serving as an important regulator of metabolism. Carbs must be severely limited before one can most effectively adapt from glucose burning to fat burning. Dr. Volek also points out that it's not what you eat, but what you save from what you eat that matters. Calories from carbs are processed quite differently than calories from fat. In New England, we have seen our quarterback Tom Brady demonstrate that a low-sugar diet with lots of healthy vegetables enhances his endurance as well as his recovery time after games. Finally, the fourth episode of Highway 28 last year featured Boston College professor Thomas Seyfried discussing cancer as a metabolic disease with metabolic solutions. He believes that, while most researchers treat cancer as a genetic disease, it may be far more sensible to treat cancer as a chronic metabolic disorder. Now, as we enter the second season of Highway 28, the first episode presents a video of Dr. Ted Naiman discussing diet and nutrition. Dr. Naiman is a physician in the northwestern United States. He successfully treats many diseases by encouraging his patients to embrace a low-carbohydrate, moderate protein, high-fat diet. His website, burnfatnotsugar.com, concisely presents many of the concepts promoted by other very low-carb and ketogenic diet experts. Dr. Naiman's diet video is well worth watching. A visit to his website is also very worthwhile. My thanks to Dr. Naiman for his permission to broadcast the video. I hope you enjoy and will benefit from these videos.
Hey there, people. I'm Dr. Theodore Naiman. I'm a family medicine specialist in Seattle, Washington. And I wanted to talk to you today about a super important concept if you want to understand why we eat the way we do. Glycemic index. So, glycemic index, blood sugar, insulin, this controls our whole metabolism. And this is extremely important if you want to understand why you should eat in any particular way. Okay, so let's talk about glycemic index. I'm going to draw a graph of your blood sugar, your glucose. Okay, here's your glucose. Okay, glycemic index is how high your blood sugar goes up after you eat a certain food. So let's say here you eat a food, and then your blood sugar goes up, comes back down. Great. How high your blood sugar goes up after you eat a food is called glycemic index. Glycemic index. And then how long your blood sugar stays elevated after you eat food is called glycemic load. Glycemic load. Okay. So, your body wants your blood sugar to stay the same all the time. It's called homeostasis. Your temperature should always stay the same. Your blood sugar should generally stay the same. So your body detects elevations in blood sugar and immediately responds by secreting insulin. Okay, so you eat a food, your blood sugar goes up, your body detects that, it responds by secreting extra insulin. And then your blood sugar comes back down. You eat a food, blood sugar goes up, body secretes insulin, blood sugar comes back down. Homeostasis. The problem is, insulin is your body's storage hormone. When insulin goes up a certain amount, it signals to the body, hey, we've had plenty of extra calories. Maybe we should save some of this up in case there's a famine next month or for the winter time or something. So when insulin goes up, this stimulates your body to take all the calories in your bloodstream and convert them in the liver to triglycerides and other forms of cholesterol, and then store them as fat. So, insulin drives fat storage. Now, some people on Earth are very insulin sensitive. This is genetically inherited. These people tend to be genetically thin. Insulin sensitive person. And we all know people who are insulin sensitive. A lot of Asian people have very high insulin sensitivity. Anyone you know who can eat whatever they want and remain fairly thin, they're insulin sensitive. All your supermodels are insulin sensitive. Insulin sensitive person can eat a food that raises their blood sugar. Let's say they eat a candy bar. Their blood sugar goes way up. They secrete one little drop of insulin, and their blood sugar comes right back down. They're never exposed to very much insulin. So these people tend to be fairly thin. They have low triglycerides, low body fat. They are not exposed to large quantities of insulin, and they tend to not have high triglycerides or high body fat. And they're usually they have thin parents. If both your parents are genetically thin and insulin sensitive, there's an 80% chance you'll be thin no matter what you eat, blah, blah, blah. So the other 2/3 of the planet, roughly, are people who are prone to possibly developing insulin resistance. Insulin resistance. And again, this is genetically inherited. Who has insulin resistance? Well, pretty much everyone who's overweight, which at this point is 2/3 of the entire nation, soon to be the world. So if you have insulin resistance, every time you eat a food that raises your blood sugar, your body secretes more insulin than it should, and this can get worse over time, so you're secreting even more and more and more and higher quantities of insulin. Over time, insulin-resistant person can have very high amounts of insulin in their body at all times, especially after they eat a food that raises their blood sugar. I will check insulin levels in a genetically thin person, and they might be very low, single digits, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll check insulin levels in obese persons with insulin resistance, and their level could be 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 80, 100. I've seen literally order of magnitude higher insulin levels in people with insulin resistance than people with insulin sensitivity. So, okay, what are we going to do about this? Well, all foods can be divided into the 3 macronutrients. There's fat, protein, and carbs. Fat, protein, and carbs. Hopefully everybody's familiar with the macronutrients. Fat would be oil or butter or lard, or protein. A pure protein would be fish or chicken or very lean meat. Carbs, anything white, sugar, flour, potatoes, starches. Okay, fat. Fat always has a glycemic index of exactly 0. You could eat a bucket of lard and your blood sugar will not go up at all. You could eat a stick of butter and your blood sugar doesn't go up. You could eat 10 pounds of bacon and your blood sugar will not go up. Because fat has a glycemic index of 0, if someone with insulin resistance goes on a diet of pure fat, they're really leveling the playing field between a genetically insulin resistant person and a genetically insulin sensitive person. And insulin resistant people who go on a diet of mostly fat immediately lower their insulin levels and immediately lower their body fat percent. So this is really desirable. You actually want to make the majority of your calories by percentage fat. Protein is weird. Now, we all have to eat protein. Protein's essential. We have to eat amino acids every day. They're important for cellular repair, and we need them structurally in our bodies, blah, blah, blah. You have to eat protein. You need about 20, 30 grams of protein per meal, average person. But you don't want to eat excessive protein. Why is that? Your body has no way to store protein. It doesn't use protein directly for energy or fuel. It only uses glucose or sugar or fat for fuel. Your cells can use sugar or fat, but not protein. So if you eat excessive protein and your body can't store it, the extra leftover excessive protein is converted in your liver to glucose and does have a glycemic index and raises your blood sugar, which can contribute to insulin secretion. So you want to eat a high-fat diet by percent of calories, just a moderate amount of protein, and that brings us to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are pretty much evil. And let's talk about why. So fat has a glycemic index of 0. Protein, as long as you're not exceeding your requirements, has essentially a glycemic index of 0. But then you've got carbohydrates. Okay, how about sugar? Sugar has a glycemic index of, well, it varies depending what units you're using, but we're going to give sugar a glycemic index of 80 just for as a reference range here. That's really high. Okay, we shouldn't eat sugar. Sugar's bad. High glycemic index raises blood sugar, raises insulin. Very damaging to your body. Glycosylates all your proteins. Super addictive and horrible and terrible. And if you're insulin resistant, causes a big spike of insulin. There are other sugars or things that are similar to sugar that you want to avoid as well. Fructose is not so good. You've got lactose or milk sugar, which is slightly even more insulin secreting or insulinogenic than sugar. So these are all, we're just going to label them sugars. Sugars. So you want to avoid sugars. Sugars are bad. What about, starches, potatoes. Potatoes, glycemic index, about a 75. Not good. Legumes or beans. I'm talking about kidney beans, pinto beans. Different legumes have varying glycemic indexes, but they're all fairly high. So legumes or beans are here in the 70 range. And these starches have an extremely high glycemic load. So these slow-burning carbs raise your blood sugar possibly for hours, contributes to a lot of insulin. Not a good thing. These are starches. So you want to avoid sugars. You want to avoid starches. And that brings us to the greatest evil of all, and that's grains. Okay, whole wheat flour. Whole wheat. Glycemic index 100. Yeah, that's right. 2 slices of whole wheat bread raises your blood sugar more than a Snickers bar. Thank you, Dr. William Davis, for pointing that out to everybody in your book, Wheat Belly. Whole wheat flour, pure evil. Crazy high glycemic index of 100. No nutritional value. This is not a good substance. White flour, slightly worse, 101. Rice, white rice, 102. Rice. Brown rice is maybe in the 70s. So not quite as evil, but still not a good thing to be eating. Corn, worst grain on the planet. Corn. We're going to call that 104. These are grains. Grains are super terrible. Grains, sugars, and starches, no nutritional value. Humans were never designed to eat this stuff. Okay, big picture. Here's what's really going on here. I'm going to draw foods with a low glycemic index down here. Meat, any kind of animal product. Eggs, nuts, maybe anything high-fat dairy like butter, and then green vegetables. Green vegetables. Green vegetables are not protein or fat, but they have a negligible or almost zero glycemic index. So you've got meat, eggs, nuts, green vegetables. Humans are hunter-gatherers. For 2.5 million years, or 99.9% of human existence on this planet, we mostly ate these foods right here. I mean, look at what people ate. We lived through 500,000 years of ice age. We were hunter-gatherers. Basically, you shot a deer, you snared a rabbit, you caught some fish, you harpooned a whale, maybe you speared a woolly mammoth. You possibly found some nuts or berries or green vegetables here and there seasonally, depending on location, depending on time of year. But you're living all winter on woolly mammoth jerky or whale blubber or seal fat or fish or rabbits or the prehistoric equivalent of these animals. Again, 500,000 years of ice age. For the vast majority of human existence, we ate mostly animal products, mostly fat, an extraordinarily low glycemic index. Nothing in human history ever raised our blood sugar much at all. I know I listed fructose as being something bad, and everyone thinks, oh, well, what about fruit? Fruit is natural. We should all be eating lots of fruit. Hunter-gatherers had fruit. Well, the reality is, if you look even back 100 years at a native heirloom variety of apple, it's very small, it's very bitter, it's like a crab apple. A modern grocery store apple that has been crossbred over generations to be enormous and have as much fructose in it as possible has literally 100 times more fructose than what was originally an apple, even just 100 years ago in human history. So we've crossbred all our fruit to be enormous and giant and huge. This has not improved their nutritional density. This just gave them a lot more fructose. So fruit is unrealistic. Hunter-gatherers had fruit maybe 6 weeks out of the year in the summertime when they were the most physically active, trying to store up fat for the winter. And these fruits were tiny, they were small, they were low yields. We're talking mostly like berries. It's not like it is now where you walk into the grocery store and you get this enormous melon or these huge grapes or this giant banana with just a metric crap ton of fructose in it. Fruit now, unfortunately, is a bag of wet candy with tons of fructose, which is extremely fatogenic. Fructose will really cause weight gain, fat storage. It's not a good thing. Oh, right. So where was I? I'm sorry. I went on a fruit rampage there. We were talking about our hunter-gatherer native diet and how it was very high in animal products, very high in fat, and extremely low glycemic index. And then, like 10,000 years ago, we had the agricultural revolution, and now we have these giant fields of wheat and rice and corn, and we keep crossbreeding them to increase yields and get more and more carbs out of them, and this stuff is ridiculous. I mean, nothing ever prepared our bodies to have our blood sugar go this high, and it literally destroys health. If you look at hunter-gatherer societies, look at the Pima Indians in this country. 100, 200 years ago, these are the thinnest, healthiest people imaginable. Then back then they were eating deer and rabbits and bison, buffalo, mostly animal products, hunter-gatherer, extremely healthy. And then they started trading with the white man for flour and sugar, and almost overnight they had just a whole bunch of metabolic problems. Now the diabetes rate is over 50% in Pima Indians. They're just rampant obesity, metabolic syndrome, which is basically insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, atherosclerosis, all the consequences of chronically high glucose and chronically high insulin. Look at the Aborigines in Australia. Just maybe 100 years ago, these groups in the desert have a mostly animal-based diet, extremely low glycemic index, thin and healthy. They move to the city, they have a westernized diet, and overnight they get all the diseases of civilization, which are caused by elevated glucose and elevated insulin. It turns out that when your blood sugar goes up too high, it damages your body. It's called glycation or glycosylation. That's a sugar frosting of all your proteins. And it's a form of oxidation or rusting that permanently damages your body. Alzheimer's dementia, for example, is glycated proteins in the brain that fold abnormally, kill the brain cells, your body can't get rid of them. These are what we call advanced glycation end products, or the products that result after you're exposed to too much glucose chronically. High insulin levels over time cause tons of diseases, from diabetes to atherosclerosis to all your cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes. The combination of being exposed to either high glucose or high insulin causes all the diseases of civilization. That's obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart attacks, strokes, cardiovascular events. Autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, gallstones, cataracts, asthma, acne. There's this huge list of inflammatory chronic conditions that are contributed to or caused directly by chronically elevated blood sugar and or insulin. Even your people who are genetically thin and insulin sensitive suffer great damage to their body when their blood sugar goes up really high over and over again. It's only the insulin resistant people who are obese, but it's possible to be very thin and still develop a ton of damage to your body from chronic glucose elevation. So 99.99% of human existence, super low carbohydrate diet, very high in fat, a lot of animal products. We have tons of data on hunter-gatherer societies who eat this way, the Inuits in Alaska, who live on whale blubber and seal fat and fish all winter long. These people are incredibly thin. They thin and healthy. As soon as they adopt a Western diet, they start getting the diseases of civilization. You've got the Maasai in Africa, where in the desert they have no plants, they have a mostly animal diet, very high in fat. These people are thin, healthy. There's a long list of diseases they almost never get as a result of their low glycemic index diet, which is very anti-inflammatory, very protective against a bunch of bad things. Like cancer, for example. A host of cancers are insulin driven. These are your endothelially derived cancer, your prostate cancer, your breast cancer, your colon cancer. These are epidemic in this country. 1 in 9 women get breast cancer in their lifetime in this country. This is not normal. This is not supposed to happen. This does not occur at this rate in hunter-gatherer societies. We have epidemic proportions of breast, colon, and prostate cancer because of our chronically high insulin and blood sugar levels, because of our Western diet. Right now in this country, 80% of our calories come from wheat flour. Your breakfast cereal, your pancakes, your waffles, your bread, your sandwiches, your pasta, your pizza, your cakes, your cookies, your pies, your muffins, your crackers, your bagels, anything in a box, anything in a bag, all your packaged foods. We're just eating tons of wheat, obscenely high glycemic index, no nutritional value, and we feed these grains to cows and pigs if we want to fatten them up really fast. Does the same thing to people. And we know we shouldn't be eating this way. We feed our dogs and our cats a grain-free, high-fat, high-protein food so they don't become fat and diabetic. But humans have a similar gastrointestinal tract, and we save all the grains for ourselves. I mean, what are we doing here? Well, here's part of the problem. Okay, so 100 years ago, a Russian scientist took a bunch of rabbits and fed them saturated fat and cholesterol, butter and lard and tallow and all this stuff. Well, rabbits don't eat that. The rabbits wouldn't eat it. Rabbits don't. They don't eat that. But apparently if you starve a rabbit to death, some of them, before they die, will eat saturated animal fat and cholesterol, like butter, if that's all they've got. So these scientists in Russia 100 years ago fed all this saturated fat and cholesterol and butter to rabbits, and watched them over time, did autopsies on them, and what they saw is some of the rabbits' arteries would get immediately clogged with cholesterol, and everyone just freaked out. They were like, oh my God, you eat saturated fat and you clog your arteries. This is science, this is real, this is happening. You cannot argue with this. It became a very big deal. It was a public health emergency in the minds of certain people. We have to warn people. You eat saturated fat and cholesterol and you clog your arteries. Well, people are dying of heart attacks, so this is dangerous. We have to warn people. And so for about the last 60 years, we've been telling everyone, do not eat saturated fat, don't eat eggs, don't eat red meat, don't eat butter, because look at these, look at these rabbits. This is, who could argue with this? And then we also said, well, let's say you're not supposed to eat saturated fat or red meat or cholesterol, but you got to eat something. So how about whole grains? Right, because that's as far away from fat and cholesterol as you can get. That's like the exact opposite. There's no saturated fat or cholesterol in whole grains. Eat more whole grains. Do not eat saturated fat like red meat, eggs, and butter. Plus, we make more wheat and corn than the rest of the world put together 10 times over, so that's perfect. That totally works out. Food pyramid, don't eat fat, eat more whole grains, done. Think of the lives we'll save. Well, the problem is nobody thought about a couple things. First of all that saturated fat and animal products that we've been eating for 99.9% of our existence on this planet has a zero glycemic index, and grains have an obscenely high glycemic index, higher than sugar. Our bodies are completely unprepared for this. The average metabolically healthy adult has the equivalent of 4.5 grams of glucose in their bloodstream at any given time. That's less than 1 teaspoon. You got less than 1 teaspoon of sugar in your entire circulatory system at one time. You drink a regular soda and it immediately dumps 12 teaspoons of glucose into your bloodstream and your body freaks out. Or, God forbid, let's say you eat a standard fast food meal with a large fries and a burger with a bun and a regular soda and a dessert. I mean, you could dump 50 grams, you could dump 100 grams of basically 10 or 20 teaspoons of sugar into your bloodstream almost immediately, and your body absolutely freaks out. It has no idea how to deal with that, and it has to pump out a ton of insulin just to survive. And if you have any insulin resistance, it's going to dump out a gallon of insulin. You're going to have high triglycerides, excess body fat. So back to the rabbits, right? We told everyone, oh, don't eat saturated fat because that's going to clog your arteries. Eat whole grains. Well, as it turns out, this is just completely junk science because rabbits are obligate herbivores. They're only supposed to eat grass and green leafy vegetables and clovers and stuff like that. They're never supposed to eat any cholesterol whatsoever, so they lack these cellular machinery and enzymes for if cholesterol enters their bloodstream, they can't get it back out again. Of course, any animal that's a carnivore or an omnivore is exquisitely good at utilizing cholesterol in the bloodstream for fuel. And in fact, a true carnivore, eating what it's supposed to eat, which is mostly saturated animal fat and protein, will never get atherosclerosis or clogged arteries. And the same is true of humans. Eating fat does not make you fat, contrary to what a lot of people believe in this country, and eating fat does not clog your arteries. This is just completely fraudulently wrong. Atherosclerosis is contributed to by elevated glucose and elevated insulin. This causes glycation of your cholesterol, and that sugar-frosted, sticky cholesterol clogs your arteries. That's the cause of atherosclerosis, chronically elevated blood sugar and insulin levels, and we have plenty of studies that document this. The other thing that we missed the boat on when we told people to avoid saturated fat and cholesterol in animal products and eat more whole grains is nutritional density. As it turns out, we only eat, we don't just eat to get energy calories. We're eating because there are a bunch of things we have to have every day that are essential. You have to have fat, essential fatty acids. There are fatty acids we cannot manufacture that we have to have in our diet. They're essential. Protein, we have to have amino acids that we cannot manufacture. These are essential. You have to have micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals. So we're not just eating to get energy calories. We're eating to get fat, protein, and micronutrients. These foods are incredibly nutritionally dense. Animal products, any kind of meat, red meat, poultry, fish, seafood, any animal product, extremely nutritionally dense, has all the micronutrients really that you need, has all the essential amino acids and fatty acids that you need. This is a complete food. Eggs, probably the most perfect food, 70% fat, 30% protein, no carbohydrates, incredibly nutritionally dense. You can make a whole freaking chicken out of it. It's quite possibly a perfect food. Butter, 400 micronutrients, tons of fatty acids that are essential. These foods are healthy. Grains, sugars, and starches have no nutritional value whatsoever. They have no essential fatty acids. They have little to no protein. They're very poor in micronutrients, and humans were never designed to eat this stuff. So the other problem with nutritional density is if you're not giving your body what it needs, you're going to be hungry. You're still going to want to eat. If you eat these foods, it doesn't take very much for you to get everything your body needs. And wow, you're not that hungry afterwards. Fat is incredibly satiating. If you give your body everything it needs, you're not going to be that hungry. On the other hand, standard American diet, do you know how many calories you would have to consume in order to meet all your nutritional requirements for the day on a standard American diet? 27,000 calories. Actually, I think it was over 27,000. But you would basically have to eat a week's supply of food or more per day to get your nutritional requirements from the standard grain-based American diet, which is basically crap. The other problem with a high carbohydrate diet is you are on this blood sugar insulin roller coaster. Your blood sugar goes way up, much higher than blood sugar should ever go. Your body dumps out a gallon of insulin, and then your blood sugar crashes, and you actually are at danger for going too low, and all that insulin soaks into your body. And then you're starving. The other thing insulin does is it takes all the calories in your bloodstream and forcibly pushes it into your fat tissues. So you eat a bunch of carbs, your insulin spikes, the insulin shoves all those calories into your fat tissue, and now you have no more energy calories. You're actually hungry. You're starving on a cellular level, even though you just ate the large French fries and the regular soda. An hour later, you have no more calories in your bloodstream. It's all been forcibly shoved into your fat tissue, and you're hungry again, and you're looking for more glucose. People who eat a high-carb diet are burning nothing but sugar for fuel. We call them sugar burners. All the cells in your body are equipped to either burn sugar or fat. They can burn either one. But it takes a different series of machinery to burn fat versus sugar and so forth. So your body either gets really efficient at burning sugar or it gets really efficient at burning fat. Now, if you're a sugar burner, you get very efficient at burning glucose, and you're not very good at burning fat. So you wake up in the morning, you're starving because you're not good at utilizing your stored body fat for fuel overnight, and you're looking for carbs because you're a sugar burner. You eat your breakfast cereal and your pancakes and your waffles. Your blood sugar goes way up, huge spike of insulin. You're unable to burn any body fat during this period of time because your insulin level is too high. You shove all the calories into your fat stores. Then a few hours later, you're starving. Your blood sugar maybe even dips too low when the insulin catches up with you. You're looking to eat again. You're craving glucose, you're craving sugar, you're craving carbs because that's what you're used to, that's what you're good at burning. Now you have to have a snack. Then lunch comes around and you're eating pasta or bread or sandwiches or carbs. And basically your sugar burning carb diet person is eating, 3 meals a day, 3 snacks a day, constantly eating. Blood sugar goes up and down, over and over. Every time the blood sugar goes up, the insulin level goes up. The sugar is damaging to your whole body, your endothelium, all your tissues from glycation. The insulin's damaging. Every time your insulin spikes, your insulin resistance gets slightly worse. And then you're starving on a cellular level because you pushed all your calories into your fat stores. And then the cycle just repeats itself over and over and over again. Throw in there the fact that you're hungry because you didn't get any micronutrients, fat or protein, which is what your body actually needs. Throw in there the fact that your insulin level pushes all your calories into fat, and your insulin level has to be low for you to ever try to burn body fat. Body fat is constantly either storing fat or burning fat, storing or burning, and insulin is the trigger. When insulin is high, you can only store, not burn. Insulin has to be low for you to burn and not store. Insulin's always really low when you eat a high-fat diet, a low glycemic index, low carbohydrate, high-fat diet. And people who are what I call fat burners, who are fat adapted, who are efficient at burning fat, just aren't hungry as often. A properly fat adapted person seamlessly goes from burning dietary saturated fat to burning stored body saturated fat, same stuff by the way, without a hitch. You just effortlessly go from burning body fat to dietary fat and back and forth, in and out, without any elevations of your blood sugar or insulin level. A fat-adapted person can go for hours or maybe even all day without eating because you seamlessly tap into your body fat. You're just constantly burning body fat. Most of my patients who become fat-adapted, they're automatically doing intermittent fasting just because they can't remember when they last ate. They're not that hungry. Maybe they eat twice a day. They're not tied to food anymore. They're not a slave to food. They'll have maybe breakfast is an omelet with a bunch of eggs and some cheese and some avocados and fried in butter and a bunch of fat, some coffee with some heavy cream in it. They're not hungry again till late afternoon or evening. They got all the micronutrients they need, the essential fatty acids, the essential amino acids, the vitamins and minerals. Their blood sugars stay completely flat, insulin level flat, not hungry. And if they run out of those calories, they just seamlessly switch over to stored body fat without a hitch. These people can exercise for as long as they want without calories. They can fast for extended periods of time if they have to, situationally, without feeling hungry. You're just not a slave to food the way you are if you're a sugar burner. Now, if you're a sugar burner, you got to eat every couple of hours. But no omnivore in nature has time to eat 3 meals a day and 3 snacks a day. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's just this carb, blood sugar over and over again. So the bottom line is humans are supposed to be hunter-gatherers. We're supposed to mostly eat animal products, maybe some nuts and berries and green vegetables, but all very low glycemic and all with a very high nutritional density. And the minute we switch over to this garbage American diet with grains and sugars and starches, we become really good at burning sugar, and we're always looking for sugar, and everything has to be carbohydrates. And we're on this blood sugar and insulin roller coaster that makes us fat and diabetic and literally causes almost all the chronic diseases that I see in my practice, from gout to Alzheimer's to diabetes to high blood pressure to high cholesterol to obesity, etc. But everyone I see who goes on a well-formulated, low carbohydrate, high fat, moderate protein, paleo diet. This diet is, if you've heard the term paleo, is short for Paleolithic. The Paleolithic was the entirety of human existence on this planet except for the last 10,000 years. But all my patients who go on this diet, magical stuff starts happening to them. They immediately go down to their ideal body weight and just stay there effortlessly without ever counting calories or worrying about calories or even necessarily exercising at all. I've had countless patients literally cure their diabetes, come off all their medications, cure their high blood pressure, cure their high cholesterol. All your metabolic problems go away. This is definitely the way humans should be eating. I don't see how anyone could debate this, and it's a crucial concept if you're going to understand the why behind what we eat and how we pick what we're going to eat. It's so important to understand the macronutrients, fat, protein, cholesterol, what they do to your blood sugar. Every time you eat a food, you should be thinking, what is this doing to my blood sugar and insulin levels? Am I going to be a fat burner or a sugar burner? Anyway, I hope somebody out there finds this valuable. I know it's been life-changing for me. I went from being a overweight vegetarian for a long period of time and feeling sickly and to being basically an extremely lean 7% body fat burner instead of a sugar burner. So anyway, I would invite anyone to join me in this form of eating. It works great for myself and all my patients. So hopefully that's helpful.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Never been better.
You look good. Have you lost weight?
Yes, I have. I don't need my diabetes medicine either.
Have you been working out?
No.
Did you stop eating?
No.
Have you been eating no-fat products?
No.
Have you been eating those meal replacement bags with only 700 calories per day?
No.
Did you join Biggest Loser?
No.
Are you sick?
No.
Did you do one of those gastric bypass surgeries?
Absolutely not.
Maybe you have not lost weight. It's just your new clothing and hairstyle that is it.
I have not changed my hairstyle or dress for a long time. I need to do that.
Okay, I don't understand. Are you making fun of me?
No, I am not.
Okay, so why don't you tell me what you have done to lose that weight? I need to lose weight too.
I am sorry, I cannot.
Why?
They say I can't, because even if I told you, you would not believe me, and there is no reason to harassing people about it.
But I can see you lost weight and I want to lose weight too, and I will believe you.
Are you sure you want to hear this? There is no going back as soon you get this information.
I think I can handle information. I'm not stupid. If it's crazy, I simply won't believe it.
There you go.
So tell me.
Okay, then, if I must. First, I did not do it to lose weight. I've been dieting my whole life. I gave up. I did it to kill myself. I decided to eat all good stuff I wanted, until I got a heart attack and died. I told my wife and friends about it and they understood.
Okay, now you're scaring me, but I'm happy you obviously did not go through with your plan. So tell me what you did. I want to try it.
I did go through with it. I decided to eat everything that was really good. I had the best meat with the best sauce, a lot of cheese, butter, cream, everything I liked.
But that could not have made you lose weight. Everybody knows that.
I did.
I don't believe you.
I told you would not believe me.
If you eat a lot of fat, you get fat. That's a simple fact.
Do you also believe that, if you eat a lot of green stuff like vegetables, you will get green?
What kind of stupid question is that?
I realize it sounds stupid, but if you read up on it, it is in fact a relevant question. Have you seen anyone eating a lot of fat and getting fat from it? Or when you think about it, it's always been a lot of food generally, and combined with a lot of sodas, bread, pasta or French fries.
I guess, but it's still the fat that makes you gain that weight.
Okay, why do you say that?
Don't you know anything about how the body works? If you eat more than you burn in calories, you will gain in weight.
I know that.
And fat contains more than twice the amount of calories, so the risk of eating too much calories is much higher with fat.
Sure.
So how come you say that you eat a lot of fat and have lost weight?
That's what I did.
But that is impossible. Everybody knows that.
Obviously not my body. Are you saying that your theory about how the body works is more truthful than the fact that I say I eat a lot of fat and have lost the weight? Do you think I am hiding my body fat somewhere from you, since it theoretically has to be here somewhere? Or are we back to you thinking I am lying to you about this? If you want to lose weight, you need to eat less. Why don't you simply do that?
I don't know. I can only do that for short periods and only if I eat every 3 hours. If I don't, my feet tends to walk me to the fridge and I find myself eating something.
I know, I had the same thing. That's why I gave up and decided I was a bad person and might just as well kill myself. Now I know that the reason for my feet walking me to the fridge were that I had a blood sugar that was falling very fast because of all the carbohydrates I've been eating. When it does, normal brain function cease to exist and you find yourself eating. That's why the only way there is to be able to starve yourself to lose weight is by keeping the blood sugar at an even level by eating often.
So you're saying you are eating often?
No. I am saying I only eat stuff that does not rise my blood sugar. The body has a perfect system of keeping the blood sugar perfect without you eating one single carbohydrate.
The brain needs carbohydrates. If you don't eat carbohydrates, you will not be able to use your brain.
Do I look brain dead to you? I don't eat carbohydrates and my blood sugar and brain function is perfect.
I don't understand.
Well, you can read up on it. It's a lot of information on the internet and in books on this.
If you don't eat carbohydrates, only grilled meat, butter, vegetables, and stuff. All that is bad. First, why don't you get fat?
I don't get fat because I don't eat more than I consume. This is because I only eat when I am hungry, not when my blood sugar goes down, as it is often if you eat carbohydrates. Another thing, my body tends to stay very warm. This is because the metabolism is high and that is an effect of not starving the body. The third reason is that my body is very used to use fat as energy, which means I can use my body fat much better than you.
When did you eat last time?
9 hours ago, I think.
That's crazy.
For a carbohydrate eater it is.
Aren't you hungry? If I don't eat after 5 hours, I cannot think or do anything.
That's because you are out of fuel. When you eat carbohydrates, the body ceases to produce them. So when you're out, you are out. If you don't eat them in the first place, you will always have enough of them. They will be manufactured from fat and protein instead, and trust me, your amount of stored energy in fat is a lot more than in carbohydrates. You get in contact with it, and you can be out walking forever as long as you have water.
I still think it's crazy. So you're saying, if I eat fat, I burn fat. Okay, what about saturated fat? It clogs your arteries.
I was expecting it too. But it seems that the body has a good way of handling the fat too. My blood fats are really low. This is because my body consumes fat much faster now. When I read up on it, it seemed it was not the saturated fat that was the problem.
Everybody knows that saturated fat is bad. Unsaturated from vegetables is much better.
When you eat a lot of carbohydrates, what do you think your body will do with them? High blood sugar levels is toxic, everybody knows that. People with diabetes gets blind and have their feet chomped off because of that. Have you thought about what the body does with the sugar? It can only store about 4,700 calories of carbohydrates. What happens if you eat more than you can store?
No, not directly.
If they can't be stored as carbohydrates, and we know you can't make proteins of them, do you think they will convert to alcohol?
Of course not.
If something you eat too much of gets stored on your body, in what form do you think it gets stored?
Okay, fat of course.
So, do you think it gets stored as unsaturated fat from vegetables?
No.
It's stored as animal saturated fat. Do you think it's reasonable that the body stores the fat in a form that's toxic for it?
It seems stupid to do that.
Did you know that your brain is made of 60% fat?
No, I did not.
Do you think it's unsaturated fat from vegetables?
I hope not.
Me too. The list goes on. There is just no reason for saturated animal fat to be dangerous for the human.
So you're saying that by just eating ecological clean food without carbohydrates I can lose weight as long as I only eat when I'm hungry, and not when I feel like eating something sweety?
That's right. It's called LCHF and stands for low carb high fat. A diet with its origins in Sweden, Scandinavia.
It's still too good to be truth.
I know, that's why I told you would not believe me. Now maybe you do. Especially if you try it yourself. If you do, you should do it in company. There are a lot of people doing this now. Be sure not to start by yourself. Try for example lchf.se or some other internet forum. There can be complications during the period from where you are now, until your body has changed its metabolism.
Okay, I will. It still seems strange that you can lose weight by not counting calories. Are you sure I don't have to count calories?
Do you know of any cat or dog or any other mammal that can count calories?
No.
Have you ever seen a fat cat or dog that got fat from the food they naturally should eat? If they had caught it themselves, their natural food.
No.
Same goes for human too. Eat a natural food for human, and you will be alright.
Okay, I don't like this. I had this perfectly figured out, and then you came here and turned everything upside down. Damn you, now I would like to believe you, but it's too good to be true, so then it cannot be true, and even if it is true I will not be able to explain it to others.
That's the shit. People around you will tell you that you are crazy, but still they can't tell you are wrong either.
Okay, I need to go home and think about this.
You do that.
What was the name of this diet again?
It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. It is called LCHF.